Julia Walsh. And may I just check if Linda Griggs has returned to the room? So after Julia Walsh, we'll have Reverend Nancy Casper.
Hi, I'm the founder and campaign director of Frack Action, and we're a member organization of New Yorkers Against Fracking, which is over 200 organizations across the state, over 1,000 businesses, and 300 faith leaders statewide. My organization will be submitting technical comments, but my focus of these comments will largely be about the public process. I want to start by acknowledging the work that was done to produce this document. The many hours and revisions, the dramatic shift over the past few years by the Cuomo administration from one that appeared to be a rush to frack to now the wisdom of listening to the science. And the scientific studies and evidence overwhelmingly show that fracking is inherently unsafe. It's poisoning the water, air, and land across this great country and making Americans sick. And although we've come a long way with this document, the process shows we clearly have a long way to go. As you can tell from being here at these public hearings, and to your credit, Mr. Rhodes, it's great that you're here in person. The people of this great state care about New York State's energy plan and future. I can sincerely say that we wanted this to be a more open and accessible process, which unfortunately it was not. Last night in Ithaca, a local citizen organized a forum on the energy plan with 2 experts. Over 100 people turned out to their local library that had adequate parking, handicap accessibility, and was in the evening after work. A spirited 2-hour dialogue and discussion took place. That is what we wanted the energy plan process to be like. Instead, the hearings have been hard to access and happening during the workday. I literally risked my life attending the first hearing in Albany, driving from New Paltz in bad weather, literally passing car accidents on the way up, only to find an equally bad parking situation. Syracuse isn't that much different. When I was just parking before, I had to stop parking in order to drive an elderly woman to the steps of this building, and that's just simply unacceptable. We need more hearings across the state that are easily accessible to the public between now and the end of April. We also need the missing documents that are the foundation of the draft energy plan, the study on renewable energy efficiency potential, and the greenhouse gas inventory. It is obvious to those of us who are closely paying attention to the details that and there are many of us, that the plan was rushed politically. Instead of pushing back that these studies were critical to be included in the completed form with the draft plan, they were not. And so now you've literally been caught empty-handed as we request for the 3rd time today in a public letter that my colleague Jessica Adjule from the Alliance for a Green Economy will present to give us the missing studies, both the study on renewable and energy efficiency potential and the greenhouse gas inventory. I request that you release these documents with an extended comment period and new public hearings for the citizens of this state. And before we have to demand it again publicly through another public sign-on letter with dozens of organizations. We would much rather prefer to work with you rather than to have to advocate over and over again for the simplest demands. I want to make my statement today, close it with some personal words. I didn't come here to participate in a charade, and all the good people who came today to every hearing that's been happening didn't come to participate in a charade either. We all have other things to do. We aren't here because we like going to public hearings or talking about the horrors of fracking and gas infrastructure or climate change. We're here because we are an educated citizenry who cares. Sometimes I'm asked what drives the passion and growth of the anti-fracking movement. My answer is always love. We are fighting for our lives and the life of this beautiful and precious planet because we love our lives here. We love our children, our families, our communities, our rivers and streams, farms and mountains across this great state. That is what drives this movement. Ask anyone in the room here today why they are here, and I can guarantee you that 4 out of 5 people will say because of their children and grandchildren. New York is at a crossroads, and we need to lead this nation and the world with an aggressive renewable energy plan and energy efficiency plan. We need this plan to reflect not the ramping up of gas infrastructure that will bring frack gas to our communities at the expense of our neighbors in Pennsylvania. We need this plan to reflect the phasing out of gas and gas infrastructure. We need this plan to reflect the step-by-step shutdown of every nuclear reactor in this state. And as Fukushima continues to spew radiation into our world, we have to finally learn and accept that there are no such things as evacuation plans. There is no evacuation plan as climate change catastrophes become more and more prevalent. There is nowhere else to go. Mr. Rhodes and fellow commissioners, the people of New York want the New York State Energy Plan to not be a mediocre piece of writing with glossy photos and charts that will ultimately sit in an office building in Albany collecting dust on a shelf, much like the state's never-released climate action plan. No, we want the New York State Energy Plan to be a living document, a real plan that we can all build and create and achieve together with you. We want to work with you to make sure that New York is a leader that inspires the country and the world of what is truly possible, that we can stop this madness of blowing up rock for tiny pockets of gas and instead harness the energy of the sun and wind and water. Let's create an energy plan that drives an upstate economic revolution with ample new jobs for our young people, our underemployed, with manufacturing, installation of renewable technologies. And may this public session not be the end of this process, but truly the beginning. We look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Rev Nancy Casper, be followed by Roland Mixon.
Yes, thank you. My name is Nancy Casper. I am a mother and an ordained minister living and doing the good work in the beautiful town of North Rose, New York. I took a look at this energy plan, and I was pretty impressed. There are a lot of words in here and beautiful glossy pictures, and very little substance to it. So I brought along a copy of the Jacobson study for you guys. So on your next try, you can have it right at your fingertips. So a little joke here. Do you want to know how to make God laugh? Tell him your plan. This rather uninspired plan was conceived from a very narrow anthropocentric perspective, as if humans were the only life form worth considering. And it was constructed from the false belief that we humans are separate from nature. Here's a newsflash. We cannot be separate from nature. The big truth is we are all connected. Mic check. We are all connected. Inextricably interconnected and interdependent with all life. Except we seem to have forgotten this truth because nowhere in this plan is there any mention of the collateral damage to wildlife, to animals, to natural habitat, the forests, and to other important elements for life like water and air. All the life that will inevitably be damaged or destroyed resultant with implementation of this plan. This plan has no heart, no substance, no clear path or goal. It speaks in vagaries and contradictions, contains conflicts of interest and hidden agendas. This plan does not direct us to the correct action necessary to avoid total ecosystem collapse. History has shown us time and again that when humans willfully destroy life in pursuit of power and control, they ultimately destroy themselves. What I see in this plan is history repeating itself today with our culture of consumerism, perpetuated by the myth that wealth is power and power is control. And we believed it well enough to give controlling power to those with wealth. And the irony here is that we're struggling today about energy, the energy that powers consumerism, the energy that creates wealth for the few who want to control power at any cost. It's a vicious cycle of destruction, a downward spiral of self-destruction. In fact, humans are effectively causing their own devolution. This plan was based on the false assumption that we can dig our way out of this environmental mess. See the paradox? The more we drill, the deeper we get, the bigger the hole in the ozone. If we continue down this path of fossil fuel consumption, we will end up destroying all life, including our own. Our Mother Earth is already giving clear evidence of our operating outside of her laws of nature. She will not support us if we do not support life. And it is clear that humans have already altered the conditions for life on Earth. We are experiencing the effects of what we've created in this precariously imbalanced ecosystem that's now in crisis. And we can see that with mass species extinction, resource depletion, and environmental degradation. You know it, we know it. We have to face the fact that we've reached a critical choice point. The alarm is sounding. There's an urgent call to wake up from the old dream and step into the power of possibilities and personal choice to create the future we imagined for our grandchildren by becoming more conscious, more loving, and compassionate humans on this planet. The time has come, and it is now. So I emphatically urge you to reject this plan as an idea whose time has passed. Heed my words, because when I look at this plan, I hear God laughing to tears. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Roland Mixon, to be followed by Patty Campbell.
Okay, yeah. I'm fine. Good morning, gentlemen, or good afternoon, I guess it is right now.
I'm not sure.
Being something of a creative person, I'm not trying to brag, you understand. I thought I would deliver this message to you in my own way, and I hope you will all bear with me. It goes something like this. When they go a-fracking in the Marcellus shale, the water they'll be using will float 1,000 whales. The gas that we'll be venting soon as the drilling starts, will saturate the atmosphere like one humongous fart. The stuff they will be bringing up from way down underground will make your Geiger counter start jumping up and down. Those fracking fluid chemicals with names no one can spell will make a weird cocktail of the water in your well. And then here we go on the final one I just got through doing here. Now, way up here in New York State, we're counting on the Gov and hoping he'll come through for us when push gets down to shove. Thank you for your attention, gentlemen. And we're going to be doing a musical called Sustainability, and it will be in the North Rose Wolcott High School at some date. And if any of you fine gentlemen would like to attend, just get in touch with me after this thing is over, and I will give you the particulars. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Patty Campbell,
Yeah.
to be followed by Michael Dixon.
Hi, I'm so happy to be among all these people who I'm resonating with and to have this opportunity. I don't have too much to say because everybody else has said my feelings, but well, one thing is that I hear these advertisements for fracking and that natural gas is the way to go. Now I can send my kids to college. I just hear it too frequently and everywhere. And you know, a few years ago, or I think it was last year, I gave some money for a counter ad, but I never heard that counter ad. So it's really hard for the average person to speak as loudly as the gas companies. So that's one point I wanted to make. The transportation of the natural gas. I mean, even if we don't do natural gas in New York State, the transportation, I mean, I see the more and more trains with these gas cars, and it's really alarming in light of the train accident in Quebec, and just that there's an accident waiting to happen, and it's just pretty scary. And there's so many accidents waiting to happen with all of this use of fossil fuels. And I really also echo that we need to get away from the fossil fuels. Let's see, one thing that a few people mentioned is conservation. And I just want to say that I lived in a beautiful old apartment building in Saratoga, New York, and it was like 4 stories high. The ceilings were like 12 to 15 feet high. They're really high. And when it was cold like it was last night, it was so hot in there that you'd have to have your window open. So I think there's a lot of these old buildings, and we want to save our old buildings, but couldn't there be some address to the infrastructure? Maybe that would help create some jobs. So jobs in that sense, and just asking ourselves what we can do to change our lifestyles to more ecologically centered, more conservation, and just see what we can do as individuals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael Dixon. Kay Kin. I hope I'm reading that right. They're both from the, well, one's from the both from the Vienna Planning Board. Neither are here. Robert Henry.
Okay. I echo everything that everybody said here today.
We can go on record with that.
No.
All right. We've noted it. Thank you, sir. Kevin Bernstein, to be followed by Philip Rose.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Rhodes, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you to the board. My name is Kevin Bernstein. I'm providing these remarks on behalf of Crestwood Midstream, LP, formerly known as Energy Midstream. I'll also be submitting some written comments as well by the end of the comment deadline. The state energy plan ignores a critical source of supply for residential and commercial heating, propane. The SEP for short, failed to identify any strategy or initiative to enable New York consumers to access a greater supply of propane or develop infrastructure to assist with efforts to address the significant price upheaval when New York is faced with a difficult winter like the one that is still upon us, even in March. In recent testimony before the House Energy and Power Subcommittee, the National Propane Gas Association stated that, quote, if there is one lesson learned from the 2013-2014 winter propane market conditions, it is that the infrastructure network was inadequate to meet consumer needs. There are a number of facets to this, and government can assist in ensuring that essential human needs are met. However, recent experience with the proposed Finger Lakes project located in Reading, New York, shows that, unfortunately, the government is not assisting in trying to avert this crisis. Constructing expanded underground propane storage in the Finger Lakes area near Reading is essential to meeting the Northeast's and New York's propane needs. There is a Northeast need, there's a New York State need, and there's a local need for greater propane infrastructure. Indeed, NYSERDA, in a 2010 report, stated that propane is an important heating fuel in New York State, and the strong demand during the winter heating season puts a strain on the industry's ability to meet that demand. New Yorkers and the entire region in general are highly dependent on propane shipments from outside the region. New York is at the tail end of what's called the TEPCO, T-E-P-P-C-O, pipeline, which delivers propane for major primary storage facilities in Texas. TEPCO recently reversed part of its line to deliver ethane south to the Gulf Coast from the Marcellus-Utica shale regions, and this has inhibited the pipeline's capacity to deliver propane supply in New York. In recent testimony before the House committee that I mentioned earlier, the National Propane Gas Association stated that the permitting and constructing expanded underground propane storage in the Finger Lakes area near Reading is essential to meeting Northeast propane needs. The NPGA has called on Governor Cuomo to approve the facility, which adds over 88 million gallons of propane storage in a region where demand far exceeds local supplies. But the state of New York, including the DEC and the governor, failed to make a decision on a perfectly suitable underground storage cavern that has been nearly 5 years in the permitting process, with everything done the way DEC wants it done. DEC has all the information it needs to make a final decision, but yet it and the governor wait, and as a result, costs consumers in New York State, particularly with such a hard winter that we've had, and is still upon us. As noted by the National Propane Gas Association, we have seen a number of challenges confronting the propane supply chain, ranging from pipeline shutdowns to rail strikes in Canada to ships not coming in on time from overseas. Supply lines can and do break during the winter, and they have caused shortages in the past. This winter, propane marketers have found themselves needing to drive long distances to obtain supply. The propane industry is proposing to address these issues in a responsible way through initiatives like this Finger Lake storage facility. And now the draft state energy plan itself ignores the need and demand for propane in New York State, despite the fact that the vision set forth in the SEP notes that New Yorkers face rising costs and intensifying impacts of extreme weather. The SEP talks about how residential, commercial, and industrial customers have the tools to easily and efficiently handle their consumption, but New York State has not allowed these customers to utilize one of these tools, storage. Finger Lakes will ultimately make available 2.1 million additional barrels, or 88 million gallons, as I mentioned, of local supply that will be immediately available. Approval of the facility will also improve the resilience of the propane infrastructure in other regions of the United States. In recent weeks, a major propane storage facility in Ontario has seen very high demand due to its close proximity to New England and the Midwest. Were the Finger Lakes facility to be in operation, it would dramatically reduce New York's demand for propane stored in those areas. Approval of the Finger Lakes facility would have cascading benefits beyond New York and New England. However, unfortunately, regulatory inaction has caused consumers real dollars and has a direct impact on the willingness of companies to invest in New York, which we understand or understood to be open for business. These issues must be addressed in the final SEP, and it is time for there to be government action because New York consumers and residents simply cannot afford inaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bernstein, would you mind leaving your written comments for the reporter?
I'm going to be supplying written comments.
Terrific, thank you. Philip Rose, to be followed by Matthew Lemke.
My name is Philip Rose. I live in a little town called Fenner, New York. Fenner has 20 windmills. We have a public park that has a mini hydro power station and a solar system for powering that facility. We're a leader in alternative energy and renewables. And myself and a number of our citizens conducted a petition drive several months ago where 70% of all the registered voters in our town signed a ban on hydrofracking. It's pretty clear that the public is well educated about this issue. You've heard testimony consistently about what this really means. The season for fossil fuels is almost over. It's ending. We already see the end of it. So to put any real serious thought into that is really limited and short-sighted. So renewables is with us. We have the capacity. It's getting smarter. It's getting more efficient. We can really do this. Obviously, if we put our minds to it, if we lend the human intelligence towards this problem, we can solve it creatively and cleanly. We don't need to continue these other processes that are just not working. This plan really needs to be a visionary plan. It needs to be a practical plan. It needs to have steps that really put us in the direction of a sustainable planet, a sustainable state. Nobody wants this other energy. We've all benefited from it over the years, but the jury is really in on this. So the plan needs to do this. It needs, first of all, to really increase the capacity of electricity to handle the renewables. It really needs a plan on how this electricity is going to solve the problem. If we're going to power our cars and our homes with electricity, powered by this, we need to really increase that dramatically. We need the clear benchmarks that aren't part of this plan. We need to eliminate hydrofracking entirely. We need to decommission nuclear power. We need to develop alternative transportation methods. We need to really look at insulating. I work in Syracuse. I drive around. I see these new construction going up for buildings, and clearly they're using none of these new technologies. Where are the guidelines? There's no passive solar being used. The insulation looks pretty minimal to me. It's really poor construction. Housing projects going up, these buildings going up. They don't take into any consideration all that we've learned on how to reduce energy needs. So there needs to be strong regulations and guidelines for construction and for refitting all the homes that we have now, and publicly funded to do that. Liquefied gas, I mean, that's a disaster. Nuclear is a disaster. I mean, it's clear. We need to bring people to the table. NYSERDA needs to really bring people who have done this research. There is so much incredible intelligence and information out there now about this. It's global, too, and America needs to step up. New York needs to step up and really be part of that dialogue. We can no longer be obstructionists to the wave of the future. The planet is calling for this. We need to participate in that. All those people need to be brought to the table. This plan needs to include a lot of other very smart people that are doing this work. So I think that's all I want to say, and I appreciate your coming here. I appreciate you listening to this, and I really look forward to working with you in the future to really make this a sustainable planet. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So Matthew Lemke, followed by Richard Montano, and then I'm going to suggest a 5-minute break at that point.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to testify today on the 2014 Draft State Energy Plan. My name is Matthew Lemke, and I am the Southern Tier Organizer and SUNY Binghamton Project Coordinator for the New York Public Interest Research Group, NYPIRG. NYPIRG is the state's largest consumer and environmental advocacy organization, and NYPIRG representatives have spoken on different topics at each of the scheduled hearings on the Draft State Energy Plan, and we will submit our formal written comments at a later date. I will focus my comments today on how the plan addresses natural gas. The Draft State Energy Plan is entitled New York, Shaping the Future of Energy, and 2 of its 4 key metrics are a cleaner environment and improved energy affordability. However, the plan forecasts significant increases in consumption of natural gas to meet our energy needs, as well as forecasting the tripling of natural gas production from shale deposits within New York with the use of fracking. Relying on natural gas, especially from fracking within New York or beyond its borders. All right. Sorry about that. However, the plan forecasts significant increases in consumption of natural gas to meet our energy needs, as well as forecasting the tripling of natural gas production from shale deposits within New York with the use of fracking. Relying on natural gas, especially from fracking, within New York or beyond its borders seriously undermines both of those goals. The plan envisions a massive increase in natural gas use in New York over the next 20 years, requiring significant build-out of natural gas infrastructure. The plan contains initiatives to encourage oil-to-gas conversions for heating buildings, accelerate investments in natural gas distribution, rely more heavily on natural gas for electricity generation, and embrace fracked natural gas from other states. So let's talk a little bit about the environmental impacts. Increasing reliance on fracked gas to meet our energy needs will not result in a cleaner environment. Fracking results in significant methane emissions during every step of the process: extraction, processing, transportation, and distribution. And pound for pound, methane is a far more potent greenhouse gas and climate change agent than carbon dioxide. The state must look at all greenhouse gas emissions, not just carbon dioxide, if we're serious about addressing climate change. Methane emissions from fracked shale gas seriously undermine any benefits of reducing carbon emissions by converting from other fossil fuels to natural gas. The state simply cannot meet its goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050 under this plan. Methane is a far more potent climate change agent than carbon dioxide, and a massive shift towards natural gas, especially fracked gas, will undermine the plan's stated goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. In addition to greenhouse gas emissions, fracking is a dangerous, polluting process, and the impacts of fracking on water and air quality are ignored completely in this plan. These impacts have not been acknowledged and accounted for in this plan, despite an entire section of Volume 2 being dedicated to impacts and considerations. While this plan states that it does not call for fracking to be allowed in New York, this claim is contradicted by the forecast included in this plan. Indeed, the plan's assumption that natural gas production will more than triple in New York by 2035 can only be realistically achieved by allowing fracking. If a key goal is to protect the environment here in New York, then fracking must be banned, and the plan must chart a course to wean New York off of natural gas, not increase our reliance upon it. So let's talk a little bit about the consumer impacts. Heavy reliance on natural gas would leave consumers vulnerable to the volatile fossil fuel market, undermining the plan's core goal of energy affordability. Given the likelihood of regulatory and global market changes, this plan's failure to account for those would leave consumers in the lurch. The plan relies on price forecasts that operate, quote, under the assumption that current laws and regulations remain generally unchanged throughout the projection period, end quote. With more information coming out about the negative impacts of fracking, national and state laws and regulations are very likely to be strengthened. This is actually happening already. In fact, since this draft plan was released, Colorado announced new emission regulations for fracking. Therefore, relying on the assumption of an unchanged regulatory regime is a clear flaw that leaves consumers vulnerable to price spikes. Also, the plan explicitly acknowledges the potential for increased export of natural natural gas and resulting price volatility that would be created, but the plan only calls for monitoring the situation. Giving the numerous currently proposed export terminals, failing to account for drastic price increases that global export of natural gas will inevitably cause in domestic market is a serious shortcoming that leaves consumers vulnerable. Instead of increasing our reliance on natural gas and putting ratepayers, public health, and our environment at risk, the state needs to maximize its commitment to renewable energy and energy efficiency. The final plan must be strengthened to account for the negative environmental and consumer impacts from fracking and natural gas reliance, provide a clear roadmap for moving away from fossil fuels, including natural gas, and move New York towards a carbon-free, nuclear-free future. Quite frankly, New York deserves better. Thank you once again for this opportunity to testify here today.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke, may I ask you to leave your notes with the reporter? I think it'll be helpful. So Richard Montano, and then we'll take a break.
Hello, my name is Richard Montano. I live in Valley Stream, Long Island, but I spent the last 4 years of my life living in central New York, completing my undergraduate degree at SUNY Cortland. I'm here right now because I'm a concerned and informed citizen of New York State. Before I start, I would like to thank you for your time and allowing me to share my thoughts and opinions here today. Two of the main points of this draft state energy plan are to have a cleaner environment and improve energy affordability. One of the biggest obstacles to achieve these goals is the threat of hydrofracking being permitted in New York State. To achieve these goals, the state must put a ban on hydrofracking. The current methods used by the process of horizontal drilling coupled with hydraulic fracturing are dangerous to the surrounding communities and environment of the fracking sites. This method of extracting natural gas pollutes both the local air and water and results in significant methane leakage, as previously noted. If New York State's goal is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050, as previously promised by executive order, hydrofracking cannot be part of New York State's future. In an attempt to achieve a curb of gas emissions, a bigger reliance of renewable resources are needed. A greater effort to make solar and wind power available to the average household must be made available. One way in making reusable energies more accessible to the average family is to introduce them at a young age. A program designed specifically to put solar panels on public schools would be widely beneficial to educating the youth on green energy, as well as setting a positive example and providing public schools with reusable energy sources. Furthermore, attention must be paid to our nuclear program. Nuclear sites are a clear and present hazard to their surrounding communities. They pose a serious threat for a wide variety of accidents as well as natural disasters. Nuclear energy expansion should be halted in the state of New York. All active nuclear sites in New York should be updated and held to the highest safety and regulatory standards. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak today, and I hope that this time will result in a cleaner and better environment for New York State.
Thank you very much. So we'll take a break at this point. We'll shoot for 5 minutes. That's optimistic. And we'll resume with Zachary Allen.